Today, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be ranking every single defender in Siege X to determine who is the most meta operators for this new era of Siege and which operators do you need to be avoiding. As always, this is strictly my opinion, but if you're going to enjoy, leave a like, subscribe, and let me know where you think I went wrong in the comments. So with that being said, let's just kick the video straight off with Alibi. Now, Alibi is a very hotly debated operator, to be completely honest. A lot of people think she's good just because she has one of the better SMGs in the game, which is true, but statistically, and then just in general with her gadget and how she functions, she's a C-tier operator. If she didn't have the SMG that she has, she would be awful. She would easily be in D tier. I think this is probably the defender that needs a rework the most. Maybe not a major one, but they definitely need to change the way her holograms work. After Alibi then, we have Aruni. Now, I personally really like Aruni. I actually play her probably more than the average player, especially on specific maps and bomb sites. I'd personally say she's probably about an A tier, but when you factor in the fact that Brava actually exists, she definitely drops down to a B tier, because if she is countering you, she is going to make it a living hell for you and your team to actually play it alongside you. But let's move on to Azami, who is going to be the first operator who comfortably sits in A tier. And maybe later on, or maybe even now, I would debate she's maybe a low end of S tier operator right now. In fact, you know what? I'm going to drop her in there because she is an operator that can make certain areas of maps playable that isn't normally playable, and she can also do one-way angles, create cover that no other operator can. She is strictly unique when it comes to this. No other operator in the game is like her, so she is very good. Next up then we have Bandit, who is a counter hard breacher at heart, and he has the MP7 and just in general has a pretty good loadout as well. He comfortably again sits in A tier. If you'd argue that he should be an S tier, I probably would allow it. He's definitely in one of these two tiers. Let me know where you would put him. But for me personally, I'm going to leave him in A tier for now. After Bandit then, we have Castle. Now, Castle is good, especially on certain maps and bomb sites. But for every single bomb site, he's not the best. And also, you kind of need to know where to put those Castle barricades for him to be good. So he has a certain level of, barrier to entry to be a good operator. So he definitely goes around A, high B for me personally. On those good maps, easily A tier. On those maps where he's not as useful, probably B. Not just for this video, I think I'm going to leave him in A tier. I'm feeling a little bit generous, so let me know if that is too high for Castle in the comments. Next up then, we have Kavira. Now, Kavira is an operator who I personally hate playing. I never got along with her playstyle, but I do know there are people out there who love Kavira. In fact, Kavira is a lot of people's main operator for defense. She's very stealthy. She can get interrogations. If you do get those interrogations off, she can be round changing, but just for consistency, you don't always get those interrogations off. So is there someone better you could be bringing consistently? Yes. But is she still good? Yes. So in my opinion, she goes in B tier alongside Aruni. Now with that being said then, the new kind of operator, it's not a new operator, but we have the major rework to Clash and the way she functions. Now beforehand, I would have easily said everyone thought she was the worst defender in the game, D tier. I personally probably would have put her in C tier just because I think she was still good at delaying the operators, and now that the rework has come out, I think she comfortably jumps up into B tier. And you know what, maybe at the end of the season she might even be an A tier, but I'm not going to overreact. I'm not going to put her too high because she is still Clash, you know what I mean? There is still the same kind of problems you have against her, and now operators can counter her more by destroying that shield once it's planted. But just as a general rule of thumb, I think she has gotten a lot better with that rework. Let me know what you think of the Clash rework, but moving on to Doc. In my opinion, as a fundamental operator, he probably is like A or B, but just because of the fact that he has such a great loadout as well, he's very meta in the meta right now. He's probably the most meta defender in the game. I think it comfortably solidifies his place in A tier. Now, I'm not going to go higher than Bandit just because I feel like Bandit does an actual job for the team as well, being counter hard breacher, but he is easy to counter. But I do still think he is a lot better than castle. Now after Doc then we have Echo, another operator that I just never really got along with the playstyle. He's never really been a good operator for me personally, not a good fit, but I do again still know he's a very solid defender, and when people play him right and play him well, he's easily A tier. I'm just not even gonna waffle on. He's just an A tier operator. He is good when he works. Next up then we have Ella, again another operator that I don't play all that much of, but I do know she is solid in certain situations, and I know she has a pretty good loadout. I'm going to put her in B tier, I'm just not really sure where. I'd say she's better than Kavira, and then with Clash I'm not sure. I'm going to leave her above Ella for now, but yeah, I'm not really sure where Ella fits in B tier just yet. After Ella then we have Fenrir, who even though his gadgets are no longer bulletproof and they haven't been for a while now, he's definitely still an S tier operator. If you have someone in your Fenrir trap, they literally cannot see, and if they cannot see, they can't shoot back, and you have a free kill. That is literally how broken Fenrir is. If you put his gadgets down in the right spots, they can also just be a pain in the ass to find, which means Fenrir is just a great operator for holding down really tight and narrow parts of the map. After Fenrir then we have Frost, who in my opinion is just a high end of B tier operator. If you get someone in her trap, she can be good. Her SMG has very low recoil, so it's a headshot machine, but other than that, she's just a pretty average operator in my opinion. I would personally rather bring an Aruni. After that, we have Goyo, who's easily an A tier operator. I fear he might be a little bit underrated. He's a very, very nice operator in the game right now. Obviously, he can delay, very similar to Smoke in that case, where you can put it down, delay coming towards the end of the game, or if the attackers are trying to push through a certain area of the map, you can delay them, hold them off, and kind of help your teammates hold them back, which is why he's so good. After Goyo, we have Jaeger, who I think is another operator who's in need of a buff. Now, I don't actually genuinely think he needs ACOG. That is a very lazy way to buff him, but I would actually like to see that. But what I think they do need to do is just try and buff him or rework his gadget in a way that it's not as useless. Now, I'm not sure where I would put him in B tier, but he's definitely in B tier for me right now. I'd probably say above Frost, because he does still get rid of some of that attacker utility, but the problem is his ADSs are just very easy to burn. Now, after Jaeger then, we have Kaid, who I'm going to put in S tier, just because he can make hard walls literally so hard to get open. He's slightly better than Bandit when it comes to that, although he does have a slightly worse loadout. As I said, Bandit in S tier, I'd be all down for that as well, but I just want to leave S tier for as little operators as possible, and I think Kaid is the better operator out of the two for the team. Let me know which operator is better, Bandit or Kaid. But moving on to Kapkan. Now, Kapkan has been one of my all-time favorite defenders ever since Siege come out. I've loved playing Kapkan this whole time. He's got me so many free kills over the years. Now, I do have to say that on console, you definitely get more free kills than on PC, because PC players are just generally more aware and less lazy to check those doorways. But with Siege X and the explosive pipes, he did kind of get a little bit of a buff as well. So even just one Kapkan trap on a piped wall or doorway, that's going to be instant kill, which is insane. So I'm going to put him in A tier just because I think he is a good operator. I would personally rather play him more than Goyo, but for the fundamentals of the team, I think it's interchangeable. Depends on the map, really. It depends on the layout and the setup, but I really do like Kapkan. I think he's an A tier operator for Siege X. Next up then, we have Legion, another operator that should be sitting around the A tier, maybe even up at S tier kind of area, because he has a T5 SMG, very good SMG. He has a good, useful gadget that, slows down the attackers. It makes them check where they're going, makes them second guess every doorway they walk through, can also help you in a gunfight if it goes off and distracts them. So for that reason, he's easily A tier, and I think maybe in certain situations, he can feel like an S tier operator, but I am going to leave him in A tier. He's not quite as meta as Doc. He's not quite as useful for the team as a Bandit, for example, and these three operators are just better. So I feel like that is the perfect spot for Legion. Next up then, we have Maestro. Maestro's a weird one because, again, I never personally liked playing him. I think on console in general, Maestro is just very hard to play, but on PC, I do know there are some Maestro players out there who are absolutely nasty. But with that being said, I don't see him getting any higher than, say, Ella in this list, I think he probably joins Alibi in C tier. Out of the two, I actually think I'd rather play Alibi, so I think I'm going to leave Maestro all the way down in C tier. Maybe he doesn't deserve that fundamentally, but just for me personally, I'd like to see him become easier to play, especially on console. Next up then, we have Melusi. Again, very similar to Doc, very meta loadout, very meta like secondary gadgets and stuff like that. I think she easily sits low A, high B tier. I think I'm going to leave her low end of A. And now that I'm thinking about it, maybe Castle does deserve to drop down to a B tier. Yeah, I'm going to leave it like that for now. But I do think Melusi is a solid operator right now, especially with Siege X. Next up then we have Mira, very good on very specific bomb sites. She used to be good on every map, every bomb site, but now that you can just break her mirror with like an Ash charge or, you know, like a Kali gadget and stuff like that, it means that she's very easily countered now if it's just sat in a place that's easy to shoot, if you know what I mean. But I do still think she is low end of A tier. She probably would be S high A before that change, and it's been years now since that change, which is crazy because it feels like yesterday. But yeah, since that change, she has fallen off quite a bit, in my opinion. Next up then, we have Mozzie. Mozzie's just, I don't know how I feel about, I used to really like Mozzie back in the day, but the more and more operators we get, I just see myself playing less and less of Mozzie. Having the ability to capture drones, it stops the attackers from being able to drone. You can then use it as an extra camera, use it to go gather intel, but at the same time, the whole time you're on a drone, you're away from the gunfight yourself, so you're not going to be entirely useful. So it's very hit or miss for me. I would say probably high end of B tier personally. I do like the weapons he has. I'd like to see the M16 come to another operator. That's just a weapon that I really enjoy using, but I don't really like playing Mozzie that much. Seeing that on another operator could be very interesting. Let me know where you'd put Mozzie. I'm a bit stuck on that one. Now, after Mozzie then, we have Mute. It's going to be the fourth operator going up into S tier. In my opinion, Mute is probably the most versatile operator in the game, maybe. He has obviously his mute jammers, which stops intel, stops drones, stops some gadgets as well, which means he also kind of works as a counter hard breacher as well. If you put it on walls, it can like stop people detonating them. Yes, they can just move up the wall and place it up there, or, you know, throw their explosive up higher on the wall, but that still makes it more awkward and harder for the attackers to get that wall open, which is great. And Mute is a great operator for slowing them down, and he has arguably one of the best loadouts as well. Good SMG, shotgun, SMG-11 combo, and he's just insane overall. Next up then, we have Oryx. Now, Oryx for me is probably the worst defender in the game. Looking at who we have left, there is maybe a few more operators that could join him in D tier, but I genuinely think he's D tier. At a highest, I'd probably put him low end of C. I genuinely think Oryx is a terrible operator. If he didn't have the T5 SMG, he'd be the Kool-Aid man, and that just sums up how bad I think he is. I think the ability to jump up hatches on defense can be good on maps like Bank, for example, where there's lots of hatches, but it also leaves you very vulnerable, so it's very hit or miss, and he's very loud. After Oryx, we have Pulse, who's just the most generic B-tier operator in the game. I don't see him going any higher, but I do think he's probably better than the likes of Mozzie. I think Castle's better than Mozzie as well, and Aruni. Maybe even Jaeger, now that I'm thinking about it. And yeah, I think Pulse is probably up there. Rook then is a very beginner-friendly operator. If you're new or a returning player, start off with Rook. He's very easy to play. But with that being said, he's not great. So I'm going to put him in B tier. Not 100% sure where yet. I think maybe something like this is looking good. Maybe Clash actually fights for her place above these two operators now as well. Moving on then to our next operator, we have Sentry, which is the recruit of defense. Now, in my opinion, the defender recruit is worse than the attacker recruit, but with that being said, it is still an okay operator. I'm going to go B tier, but not very high. Again, I'm just going to go above Mozzie. Moving on then, we now have Skopos, and Skopos is a weird operator for me because she kind of similar to Maestro in a way, where she has like that indestructible camera going on where you can look at it without people shooting at you, but you can also just use it to pretty much teleport around the map, which is a much better addition than Maestro. So she definitely climbs up a minimum to an A tier, B tier, sorry, and I'm thinking maybe low end of A tier for Skopos. Is that too high? I don't know. I'm looking at operators like Aruni here. I'm thinking she deserves to be higher, and I think Skopos deserves to be lower. I don't know. This is kind of like what I'm thinking right now, but maybe this is a personal bias with Aruni being so high. After Skopos then, we have Smoke, someone who I can comfortably say is an A tier operator, probably similar to Goyo. I'm going to put him slightly higher than Goyo just because he does that job that much easier. You don't have to go through the animation of placing it and placing it at the start of the round. You can keep them in your pocket and then throw them where you need them when you need them. And he has the same kind of loadout as Mute. So that is again another insane loadout. Smoke again is great for just delaying people, putting them off and giving you and your teammates time while burning into the attacker's time, leaving them less time to actually go plant the bomb and win the round. Now after Smoke we have Solace, who when she first released was S tier. When they gave her the little bit of a nerf, I'd say she went down to like maybe like a B, low end of A, and then when they reworked her, I think it just pushed her all the way down into D. I genuinely think Solace is a very bad operator. I wouldn't say she's in D tier, to be honest. I'd say she's like high end of C tier, but right now she is very, very bad. I think Ubisoft need to revisit the rework they did to her. In fact, I would revert that change that they did, the rework, and I've said this a few times in these operator ranking videos, but one rework that I have in mind is instead of just changing it, the way it works, have it so during prep phase it does not work. Then once the prep phase is over, your range starts off at 5 meters, which is the nerfed range, and it starts off at 5, and then as it slowly goes through the round, it goes up in range up until what it used to be, which I believe was either 10 or 15 meters. That means at the start of rounds, you are still, struggling. You have less range to find drones and stuff like that. But come towards the end of the round, if you manage to stay alive for that long, your gadget gains 15 meters of range, which means you're able to see 15 meters to kind of make plays off. If you're below objective, you're still able to do that thing where you can see where people are planting the bomb. You can do the impact trick to stop them from planting, that kind of thing. And for that reason, I think Solace with this kind of buff where it slowly gets more and more range would be great. And I think that's a change that I would like to see the most. Now after Solace, we have a run of some pretty awful operators. Tachanka, in my opinion, can be good, but you need a very high skill ceiling to be able to use him effectively. He kind of does what Goyo does, but at the same time, he doesn't do it as well as Goyo, and then he kind of does what Smoke does, where he can use it where he wants, when he wants, but it's very hard to deploy it when you want it and where you need it, because it bounces, it's hard just to get the trajectory right, and in my opinion, that leaves him again as a C tier operator. Thorn, in my opinion, has one of the worst gadgets in the game. I might actually leave her in D tier just because of how bad the gadget is. Ubisoft again buffed this gadget and she immediately becomes at least B tier, but she does have a pretty good SMG. Thunderbird is going to go in B tier, but even with the buffs they gave her, she's still not very great, you know what I mean? Like, Doc is just better. After Thunderbird, we have Tubarão, who's probably low end of A tier, high end of B, in my opinion. He does do his job pretty well. On certain maps, just delaying the hard breach and stuff like that, especially if you use this in combination with a Kaid, with a Bandit and stuff like that, it makes it very hard for them to get the walls open. So that is why Tubarão can be so goddamn good. Valkyrie, I'm tempted to go A tier here, like middle or high end of A tier. I'm going to go around Goyo actually. That looks like a pretty good spot to me. The reason why she's not higher is because if you're playing solo queue, you have to rely on your teammates to use those cameras, and also kind of similar to Fenrir, where I said you need the knowledge of where to put those gadgets. If you don't know where you're putting those Valkyrie spots, they're very easy to find. So you need to do your research, find out the best places to put them on each map, and you need to remember them and use them in game to get the most out of her. After that then we have Vigil, who is someone who I always get wrong. Whenever I put him like C tier or B tier, people argue he should be higher. But whenever I put him A tier, I personally think he's too high, and a lot of other people would agree with me that he's too high in A tier. So I'm gonna go in B tier. In my opinion, he's probably better than Sentry, Mozzie, Rook, and Cav. In fact, Cav is fighting for her life in B tier. I'm tempted to drop her down, but I will leave her in there for this video. But in my opinion, Vigil, even though he is good because you can kind of hide your exact location, the fact that drones, cameras, and stuff like that can still sense that you're in that area, it means they're going to take caution while entering that area of the map anyway. And if you're not playing your cards right, it means you'll still be detected. Either way, moving on from Vigil to Wamai, he's just a better version of Jaeger. Right now, I'd say he's probably up in A tier, but probably the bottom of A tier, and then Warden is probably just high end of B. He's probably better than Skopos, but if no one's using flashbangs or smokes, you're better off bringing anyone else who's above him. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, this is my finished Defender tier list for Siege X. Now I'm just going to do a little bit of a comparison here on screen now as to what the last season's tier list looked like. Hopefully you can see some changes in there. Let me know if it's drastic or not. A few things I've noticed is Capcan has obviously reclaimed his place in A tier, probably more legitly. Clash has gone up, which is good. A few operators I've put lower, and in my opinion, they should stay there. Now that we're in this whole new era of Siege, I'd like to see Ubisoft take updates, reworks and stuff a little bit quicker. Either way, I'll leave a video on screen now. I will also be doing an attacker tier list, so if that's out, I'll put that as the video on screen now. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoy, and goodbye.